Please note, in order to comply with YouTube policy, this free version of the audiobook has bedroom scenes redacted. If you would like to read the full text, please get the ebook or print version of the story.
Chapter 1. Maya. Chilly saltwater splashes onto my face. I flutter my eyelashes open and try to figure out where I am. Nausea overwhelms my system when I sit up too fast on the large buoy. I hold on to the tall beacon's superstructure and attempt to tamp the sickness down. The stinging sensation when I try to swallow makes me cringe and lift my free hand to my neck. My throat is so parched, I may as well be stranded in the desert, rather than surrounded by such a vast expanse of water. When I slowly turn my head from side to side, hoping to spot some land, churning blue-green water greets me in every direction as far as my eyes can see. My lips are chapped and dry, which makes me wonder how long I've been out here. I try to wet them with my swollen tongue, but it doesn't provide much dampness. It's obvious from my body's state that I'm extremely dehydrated and need to find some fresh drinking water soon. I can't imagine how I managed to get into such a dire situation. When I try to remember the circumstances before I woke up out here, my head pounds with pain. My hand moves up from my throat to my forehead and comes away bloody. Terrific, I mutter when I see the sticky evidence of my head injury. Looking up toward the sky, I add in a scratchy tone, I guess I needed one more thing to deal with, huh? Although I have no idea who I'm talking to, verbalizing the complaint does make me feel a tiny bit better. I squint my eyes at the horizon and try to figure out if I should try to swim to safety. Turning from side to side, I realize that I don't have any idea which way the shore is. Even if I somehow managed to go in the right direction, I wouldn't be able to make it far in this weakened state. Drowning or being eaten by a huge sea creature with sharp teeth are not items on my bucket list today, or any other day. My best option is to stay here and hope that a boat comes by to rescue me. Someone must be looking for me, right? The realization that I don't even know who would notice I'm missing is jarring. I should be able to think of family or friends who love me, but it makes my head hurt worse when I try to remember. Perhaps my head injury cleared out some of my memories. I still know how to think in cohesive sentences, and I know that dehydration is very dangerous, but I don't remember any key details about my life. Hoping that saying it aloud will prompt my brain to remember, I say in a hoarse tone, "My name is..." Nothing. I have no idea what my name is, but I know that I should have one, so I guess that's something. It's depressing to realize that I probably have a full, vibrant life out there somewhere that I know nothing about. While it's tempting to lie down and allow myself to fall back to sleep, I know that isn't a good idea with a head injury. Besides, I don't want to miss any opportunities to flag down passing ships, not that there are any. Boredom takes over as I stare out at the seemingly endless sea. Somehow I remember several songs, but singing or even humming hurts my throat too much. Trying to recall details of my life makes my head throb, and wondering if I'm going to die out here is terrifying, so I simply sit and stare out at the horizon. The sun is lowering in the sky, which means nighttime is approaching. My chance of being seen and rescued in the dark is practically zero, and I have no idea how much longer I can survive the harsh elements out here alone. I really need someone to find me now. I'm not sure what I believe in, but I close my eyes and send a silent message to God, the universe, or whatever else may be out there listening. I'm stranded. Send someone to help me. I don't know if I've been a good person up until now, but I promise to do my best to be one going forward. Please save me. After breathing deeply and meditating on those words for several minutes, I almost have myself believing that help is going to magically appear. But when I open my eyes and look around, the only thing that greets me is overwhelming disappointment. My shoulders slump forward as I stare down into the dark abyss. Quick flashes of silver catch my gaze as a school of fish swims past. The sight of them gives me a surge of hope that I may be able to catch one and eat it, until I deflate with the knowledge that I don't have anything to use to capture one, other than my bare hands. I can't resist reaching down into the water and giving it a try, but I don't even come close to grabbing a fish. Eventually, I give up and decide that hunger pangs are pretty far down on my list of worries right now. Bored, tired, and depressed, I lean my head back on the buoy. The thought of spending a cold, dark night out here alone is terrifying, but not as bone-chilling as the realization that I truly might die out here by myself. What a lonely way to go, especially since I can't seem to even conjure any memories of loved ones to keep me company. I'm so busy feeling sorry for myself, I almost don't see it. When I do notice the tiny object off in the distance, I blink several times as I try to figure out if it's real. Deciding that whether it's real or not, it's my best hope, I stand and begin waving my arm in a wide arc. The wait seems interminable. I'm not sure if it's true or just wishful thinking on my part, but the small blob seems to be getting bigger. It's still too far off to hear me, but I can't stop myself from yelling, "Help!" Unfortunately, my dry throat keeps my voice from working right, and my big yell comes out more like a scratchy plea. I frantically search the buoy for some type of bell I can ring or light I can use to attract attention, but come up dry. Instead, I climb as high as I dare and wave my arm as wide as I can. For the first time since waking up, luck seems to be on my side. Sweet relief surges through my system when the object moves close enough for me to see that it's definitely a boat. I continue waving, since there's no way I'm allowing this almost unbelievable opportunity to pass me by. As the fishing boat pulls alongside the buoy, I scramble down to the platform and easily catch the life preserver ring tossed my way.
Hold on to that and jump in the water. I'll pull you to safety,
the boat captain yells across to me. I'm mesmerized by the gruff voice and the impossibly handsome man it belongs to. When I remain frozen in place, he yells across the water to me.
Are you strong enough to hold on while I pull you in?
I nod frantically, not wanting him to leave me here while he goes to get better equipped assistance. I'm frightened to leave my buoy of safety, but decide that there's no way I'm missing this rescue opportunity. I clutch the float, squeeze my eyes closed, and jump into the cold, churning water. The man shows impressive strength as he pulls the rope in and I sail across the water. In a flash, he helps me climb aboard the boat and wraps a warm towel around my shoulders. After swiping the soft, dry fabric across my eyes to clear them of salt water, I smile up into the incredibly handsome man's deep, gorgeous green eyes and say, "My hero." Those beautiful eyes turn stormy with hatred as recognition sets in, just before he growls in a menacing tone.
You. Chapter 2. Roman. I thought she was a beautiful mermaid, clinging to the side of the large pillar buoy. That should have been my first sign that my head isn't in a good place right now. As I drove my boat closer to her, I realized that she wasn't a mermaid at all, of course. Instead, I'd found a bedraggled, terrified woman stranded out here all alone. My natural instincts immediately kicked in as I worked to save her. There is no way I would leave someone in the middle of the ocean to brave the elements on her own. But then I pulled the exhausted woman aboard my ship, got a good look at her face, and realized that is exactly what I should have done. Turned the other way and tried my best to forget ever seeing her. Her fancy dress is ruined and she's lost her expensive-looking heels, but it's definitely her. I'd recognize her anywhere, since those mesmerizing, pleading eyes are sure to haunt my nightmares for years to come. Of all of the women in the world, why did I have to go and rescue this particular one? It's not in my best interest, or hers, for us to be together again. When my angry gaze locks onto her lovely eyes, it's tempting to shove her overboard. She could swim right back to the buoy I found her on. She's soaked, but other than that, neither of us would be any worse off than before I found her. Except, I can't do that. Even though I know she's going to bring nothing but trouble, danger, and heartache into my life, I don't have it in me to abandon her, again. The very real fear that she might push me overboard and take my boat for herself crosses my mind, so I spread my feet in a wide stance and prepare to fight her off if she lunges at me. My furious glare is greeted with a mystified look when I squeeze my fingers around her arm and spit out the single word, "You." She blinks several times as if she's utterly confused by my hostility. Eventually, she asks,
"Do we know each other?"
I stare deeply into her beautiful blue eyes, trying to determine what she's up to. My first impression of the woman as a wily criminal overtakes my mind as I narrow my eyes in her direction. This innocent act must be some type of trick. We just saw each other, so there is no way she forgot already. I need to stay on high alert until I figure out what her angle is. Since she's giving me an expectant look as if she wants an answer, I say, "Yeah, we've met, and I was really hoping we would never cross paths again." The hurt expression that arises on her face is undeniable. This broad is one heck of an actress. I can't let my guard down for a second around her.
I'm sorry if I did something to hurt you,
She murmurs quietly, staring down at the boat's deck and sounding utterly sincere. Turning her gorgeous, suddenly hopeful gaze up to me, she says,
but I so appreciate you rescuing me. You're a true hero. I'll do anything to make amends with you.
Yep, she's definitely up to something. I just can't imagine what her motive is for being overly nice to me. She should be furious and possibly frightened rather than apologetic. After staring at her for a long moment and not seeing even a trace of anger or fear in her expression, I say in a firm tone, "Your head is bleeding. I'll get the first aid kit. Stay here." With that, I stalk toward the storage compartment. I half expect to hear her running up behind me to conk me over the head. When it's suspiciously quiet, I turn to the side and find her obediently standing where I left her. This wide-eyed, grateful, and bewildered woman is the complete opposite of the fiery she-devil I met earlier. If I didn't know better, I would swear they couldn't possibly be the same person. But I would recognize those vivid, full-of-life eyes anywhere. Even in her current drenched state of shock, she's one of the most attractive women I've ever seen. There's something unique and intriguing about her that makes me want to get to know her better. I felt it during our earlier encounter, and I'm nearly overwhelmed by it now. But it wouldn't be smart for either of us to forge a relationship with each other. In fact, that's about the worst thing we could do at this juncture. Annoyed with myself for even thinking of her in a romantic capacity, I grab the first aid kit, indicate my captain's chair at the helm of my fishing vessel, and demand, "Come sit down so I can clean and dress that head wound." She moves to comply, but her legs are wobbly as she walks gingerly around the full crab traps on the deck. Fearing that she may stumble and fall, I rush forward to steady her by putting one hand on her arm while my other wraps around her waist so I can grip her hip. My fingers and palms tingle from the electric connection with her. I know I should pull back from it, but I find myself unable to do that. Instead, I lock gazes with her. The enamored look she gives me is beyond addictive. It would be so easy to lose myself in her beautiful blue stunners, but I can't allow that. It wouldn't be in my best interest, or hers. She must realize that. Shaking my head to clear away the spicy train of thought that has invaded my brain, I loosen my hold on her and guide her to my seat. In a steady tone I say, "Easy now." She sits and breathes out a relieved sigh before saying,
Whoa, I felt a little woozy there for a second.
After grabbing my thermos of water, I hand it to her and say, "Here. You must be dehydrated." Her eyes light up at the sight of my water jug as she makes grabby hands for it. After tipping it back, she glugs down several big gulps. "Slow down. You don't want to make yourself sick," I warn her. Eventually, she lowers the jug and lets out a satisfied sigh. It's impossible not to imagine her sighing contentedly like that after I've redacted. Forcing that unwanted mental image from my mind, I dig around in the plastic box for alcohol swabs, gauze, and bandages. She holds her breath as I tend to her wound. I wonder if she's scared that I'll hurt her more, or if she's as keyed up by our nearness as I am. When she sucks in a breath at the sting of the alcohol, I pause. I'm as gentle as I can be when I resume caring for her injury, but my hand is shaking. My body's reaction to her is infuriating. I want to blame her for it, even though I know she has no control over my internal processes. Her eyelids blink slowly, and I feel her shallow exhales on my neck. It's as if everything is in slow motion. Being this close to her makes my entire body numb and tingly. I don't like the out-of-control feeling, yet I can't bring myself to pull away from her. I do my best to focus on the task at hand, despite my roiling emotions. When I gently place the gauze over her cleaned wound, her lush lips fall open. "Does that hurt?" My voice comes out scratchy as if I'm the one who has been stranded at sea with nothing to drink.
No,
She answers in a soft tone. After a moment, she adds,
I like having you take care of me.
There's no denying that I like tending to her, but there's also no way I'm going to admit that to her. Instead, I purse my lips as if I find helping her to be completely distasteful. Ignoring my feeble attempt at being aloof, she whispers,
I think I would also like it very much if you were to kiss me.
Hot raging desire shoots straight redacted. This darn woman is absolutely irresistible. But she must be playing some kind of game with me. Reminding myself of that, I answer in a terse tone, "That's not going to happen." She shrugs her shoulders before saying,
"Another time then."
Narrowing my eyes into a stern glare, I add extra vehemence to my tone when I say, "Never." Her eyes sparkle with the glint of an irresistible challenge, and I know I'm in trouble.
Chapter 3. I couldn't ask for a more handsome, capable, or irresistible rescuer. The thought even crosses my mind that I'm dreaming, and my dehydrated, distraught brain has conjured up the ideal fantasy man. I guess if I have to die, hallucinating about a wonderful, heroic boat captain is definitely not the worst way to go. But this feels real, and this man is not exactly perfect. He's as crabby as the creatures glaring at me from inside their cages on the deck. I get the distinct impression that they would happily pinch me if they could get access to my fingers or toes, and the man doesn't appear much friendlier. In fact, it almost seems for a moment like he's considering dumping me overboard and abandoning me here where he found me. Thankfully, he evidently decides against that. When he moves close and begins carefully tending to the bloody gash on my head, it's all I can do to hold back from pressing my mouth to his. The knowledge that my lips are cracked and dry is the only thing that keeps me from acting on the urge. This perfect specimen of manhood deserves a sensuous kiss from soft, moisturized lips, not a parched one from the sandpaper texture mine have turned into. But if he happens to decide that he wants to kiss me, I certainly won't object. In fact, that would be wonderful. I hear my own voice offer him a kiss. The sound is disconnected from my mind as if another person is saying it, even though I completely agree with the sentiment. He quickly shuts down that idea. My first instinct is to accept that he's just not that into me, but something in the way he looks at me and how his breath hitches in his chest when he's close to me makes me think that's not the truth. He wants me to think he's not interested, which is definitely not the same as actually being uninterested. Something about the challenge of peeling back the layers of his hostility is irresistible. It makes me wonder if I'm a competitive person by nature. Since he seemed to recognize me, I ask, "Do you know my name?" He looks at me like I've just suggested that he run around the boat in polka-dotted underwear while singing the national anthem.
Yeah, Maya, I know your name. How hard did you hit your head?"
Maya. I breathe out the beautiful name, hoping to discover some sense of familiarity but find none. Even though it doesn't sound nearly as exotic falling from my lips as it did his, I still like the sound of it. "What's my last name?" I ask him. He steps back to glare down at me.
"What game are you playing here, Maya?"
"No game. I just seem to be having some memory issues," I answer honestly, blinking up at him. My eyes must convey the truth in my statement, because he says in a slightly less gruff tone,
"Your last name is Summers, Maya."
I nod my head as I practice saying it aloud. Maya Summers. Hi, I'm Maya Summers. Although I enjoy the sound of my full name, it doesn't magically bring back any memories, like I'd been hoping it would. Holding my hand out to my rescuer, I ask, "And you are?"
"My name is Roman Cox."
He shakes my hand while eyeing me warily. The connection sends a delicious shiver up the length of my arm. Giving the gorgeous man a wide smile, I say, "Roman is such a strong, virile-sounding name, and Cox, well?" I let the sentence trail off as I grin and look down at his redacted. To my delight, he redacted under my gaze. The man may not like me, but certain parts of him are definitely showing interest, significant interest. He quickly turns and walks away as he redacted. When he takes a long moment staring out at the seemingly endless expanse of seawater, I ask, "Why do I get the impression that you don't like me very much, Roman?"
"Because I don't. And you shouldn't like me."
His voice is filled with frustration when he adds,
"Do you really not remember? Because if this is some type of trick..."
He angles a glare at me and lets the unfinished threat dangle. It seems even more menacing that way. I shake my head. "I'm not playing any games with you. But I can't imagine myself not liking you. It must have been some type of misunderstanding."
"No.
He firmly sets me straight.
You have every reason not to like or trust me."
He takes long strides to close the gap between us. His menacing expression makes it tempting for me to step back away from him. Instead, I lift my chin and hold my ground. We're mere inches apart when he says,
And I don't like or trust you at all.
Lifting my shoulders as if things are completely out of my control, I say, well, that's too bad because you're the only person I know. You're a bit surly, but I already kinda like you. I'd been hoping my sweet admission would make his angular pinched features soften, but they don't. If anything, they harden further. Diving in headfirst, I continue, my gut is telling me that I can trust you. He leans in and towers over me, forcing me to tip my head back to see his face. In a voice that could only be described as a growl, he says the single word,
Don't. Chapter 4. She's up to something. She must be. But I can't for the life of me figure out what it is. And she sure does seem sincere. Perhaps that head injury really knocked her for a loop. But when her memories return, she will hate me even more if I keep her with me. The best thing to do is take her to the authorities. They can protect her, figure out if she needs medical attention, and get in touch with her family. Then I can wipe my hands of the entire situation. I wheel the boat around and head toward shore. It should feel great to have a plan in place. I've done my part to help her. Now it's someone else's turn to take over, someone trained for this, who gets paid for assisting others. I'm just a boat captain, and she's not my problem. Except, she is kind of my problem. I'm a big part of the reason why she's in this predicament, and I'm not sure how safe she will actually be with the authorities or in a medical facility. She has some really sketchy characters after her. If they get wind that she's been rescued, they'll come after her. Her amnesia might help keep her safe if they believe it, and as long as her memories don't return. But I doubt the criminals will be willing to take that chance. They are the types that would prefer to kill her than leave a loose end that could come back and bite them later. I don't want to care. She's not my problem. But I can't quite bring myself to leave her to her fate. She seems so vulnerable without her memories, if that's even the truth. Turning to look at her, I can't help but smile at how happy she looks as the wind whips her hair around her face. One would never guess by looking at her how much she's been through in the last couple of days. Of course, if she's being honest about her amnesia, she doesn't remember the vast majority of what she has endured. My head says not to trust her, but my gut tells me that she's being sincere. I don't even want to contemplate what my heart and redacted want, but they seem to be in agreement with each other. I increase to full throttle and let the boat skim over the water. The speed feels good, and I need the time to think about what to do with Maya. As much as I want to dump her at the closest emergency room, I know I won't be able to do that. One wide-eyed pleading look from her will have me at her mercy. There's some gentlemanly instinct ingrained in my personality that won't allow me to turn away from a beautiful, vulnerable woman, especially if she's in danger. Logically, I know she shouldn't be my problem, but I don't have the ruthless streak it would take to leave her at the mercy of the heartless criminals who are after her. I'm not sure what she did to get on the bad side of these people, but she is in no shape to deal with them now. She was in trouble before, while all of her memories were still intact. I did my best not to think about it then, figuring that she'd likely done something to deserve their hatred and retribution. But now, she would be at an even greater disadvantage. She wouldn't know who they were or why they were after her. I can't leave her to that grim fate, I won't. As I pull up to the dock, I once again question my decision to watch over her. She's not my responsibility, or at least she shouldn't be. I work quickly and efficiently to tie off the boat. There are a few tourists milling around the docks, hoping to buy some fresh crab for dinner, but I don't have the time or energy to haggle with them tonight. Instead, I text a picture of my haul to buyer contacts from a local fish market and a couple of waterside seafood restaurants with the caption, "The first one here gets all of them." It makes me grin to think about them racing each other to get here and pay me. There are definitely worse ways to make a living. When I hold out a hand to help Maya step off the boat, I realize the woman has bare feet. After I dig around in one of the boat's storage compartments, I find an old pair of flip-flops and hand them to her. She uses my shoulder to balance as she slides the oversized shoes on. My skin heats beneath her touch through the fabric of my shirt. Grinning down at the large thongs sticking out from her drenched, sparkly dress, then beaming up at me, she says,
"Well, this is certainly a look."
I force myself not to return her smile over the ridiculous ensemble. Instead, I get busy unloading the boat. She watches, seeming mesmerized as I place the bushel baskets of my fresh catch on the dock and quickly spray down my ship. By the time I'm done, Marty from the fish market runs toward me, waving a stack of $100 bills in my direction. He doubles over and places his hands on his knees as he asks between pants,
Am I the first one here?
"Yep," I confirm as I grab the cash from his hand, count it, and then tuck it into my pocket. All three of us turn to watch Jimbo from Sunsetters amble down toward the dock. The red-faced, overweight man is trying to jog, but he sways from side to side too much to get any significant forward momentum. Once he's within speaking range, he glares at us.
"Darn it, Marty. You beat me again?"
Marty gives him a smug grin as he shrugs his shoulders. Although he says,
Better luck next time.
it's obvious that he has no intention of ever letting the other man win. Glaring his beady eyes in my direction, Jimbo waggles his beefy finger at me as he says,
"You better not be giving him an early look at the haul, Roman."
"I would never," I assure him, trying my best to look like the picture of innocence. The large man grumbles under his breath as he turns to go. He pauses mid-whirl and studies Maya.
"Who is this? Did you actually find a woman willing to put up with you?"
Ignoring his dig at me, she answers.
My name is Maya. Maya Summers.
She turns and graces me with a wide, happy smile that shines as bright as the sun. She's obviously proud of her ability to recite her name, and I can't deny how adorable it is. I'm beaming back at her like a lovesick dope, until Marty steps forward and tries to flirt with her. Thumbing me while keeping his eyes locked on her, he says,
You can do so much better than this crusty boat captain, sweetheart.
Ugh. You're both already here. Why do I even bother trying?
These frustrated words come from Sal. He works at Krabby Joe's, the closest restaurant to the docks, but always manages to come in third when I text the trio.
"You shouldn't bother."
Jimbo mumbles as Sal joins our little group. Sal's watery eyes lock onto Maya. I grit my teeth as the older man waggles his bushy gray brows in her direction, before taking her hand, lifting it to his lips, and saying,
I'm Sal, and I'll show you a way better time than any of these bozos can.
"None of you idiots are showing Maya anything. She's with me," I growl. I'd made the statement because I know that I'm the best one to keep her safe, but once I hear it emerge, there's no denying how possessive it sounds. The other men widen their eyes, step back, and make innocent palms in the air gestures as if I'm being unreasonable. I chance a glance in Maya's direction, expecting her to be furious over my protective alpha caveman attitude, but she's giving me a starry-eyed gaze as if I'm the leading man in her wildest fantasies. Darn. Her adoring gaze is addictive.
Okay, you don't have to get snippy about it,
Sal says, even as he gives Maya an over-exaggerated wink. She giggles at his overt flirtation, which makes my irrational irritation flare even hotter. Grabbing her delicate hand within mine, I give all three men a stern look before saying, "She's coming home with me." My stern tone must do the trick because the other males don't make another peep, as I set off with Maya in tow. Once we're several steps away, she grins up at me to say,
I don't know much about my personality, but there's no denying that having men flirt with and bicker over me makes my heart race in the most wonderful way.
When I continue stalking toward the house I normally love, but is likely going to feel way too small with her in my space, she adds in a conspiratorial whisper,
I'm glad you won though, because you're the only person I want to leave here with.
"Lucky me," I mutter, suddenly feeling like the unluckiest man in the world. It could have been absolutely anyone stranded on that buoy. Why in the heck did it have to be this blasted, irresistible woman?
Chapter 5. Roman's long legs and smooth strides make it difficult for me to keep up with him, but I manage. I'm taking almost 2 steps for each of his single ones, but he doesn't seem to notice or care. It's almost like he considers me a nuisance or burden, but something in my gut tells me that there's much more to our story than he's letting on. His attitude is on the verge of being hostile towards me, but I sense that I can trust him. I can't explain it, but somehow I just know that he won't let anything bad happen to me. Even without the luxury of having any memories of our previous interactions, it's obvious that the surly man and I have explosive chemistry. There's no way it's in my imagination. He just doesn't want to admit it, for some reason. Perhaps I broke his heart in our past. Grinning to myself, I decide to find a way to make it up to him. Without any warning, Roman stops walking and whirls around to face me. He takes a few aggressive steps forward, and I instinctively move backward. My back presses against the brick wall of a seaside cafe. My eyelashes flutter as I stare up at him, confused and delighted by his sudden nearness. He hovers over me, and his arms come up to cage me inside his hulking shadow. We share the same air for a long moment. My eyelids fall shut at the heady feeling of knowing he is this close to me. It would only take a slight movement from either of us for our lips to meet in a kiss. My breath comes in shallow gasps, as every nerve ending in my entire body lights up with tingling awareness of his nearness. In a hushed tone he says,
"Don't move. The men who dumped you in the water and left you for dead are across the harbor."
I lean around, trying to see past his wide shoulder and hoping for a glimpse of them. He tightens his grip around both sides of my head, effectively blocking my view as he whispers in a stern tone,
"I said not to move."
"I want to see them. I need to know who to watch out for," I whisper back just as adamantly. When I lean up onto my tiptoes to try to catch a look at them, Roman mutters under his breath,
"This is for your own safety, you stubborn woman."
With that, he leans in and presses his soft lips to my parched ones. If he's disgusted by my chapped lips, he gives no indication of it. Some part of my brain knows that I should be worried about the men who harmed me, but that small faction is no contender against the mind-melding delight that overtakes my senses from Roman's hot kiss. I don't remember the previous kisses in my life, but I can't imagine that any were as all-consuming as this one. I don't ever want it to end. When I moan and open my lips, Roman rakes his fingers through the hair at the nape of my neck as his tongue finds mine. Our kiss is deep and passionate. It leaves us both breathless. It has to be more than simply a cover-up from the men who are after me, right? When he finally pulls back, it's all I can do to keep from whimpering in frustration. As I slowly open my eyes, Roman's hostile glare down at me snaps me out of my dreamy state. It almost looks like he's angry with me, as if I somehow made him kiss me senseless. If his chest wasn't heaving with the obvious results of our passion, I might begin to doubt if he enjoyed our steamy make-out session. Returning his glare, I whisper, "Don't even pretend like you didn't like that because I can tell that you did."
"Don't be too sure about that."
He mutters, still caging me in against the wall with his strong arms. Furious that he would imply that our desire for each other is one-sided, I do what feels like may be an uncharacteristic move for me. I reach redacted. His redacted. Roman hisses air between gritted teeth at the bold move that surprises us both. I lift my nose and savor the faint spearmint scent of his breath that will from this moment forward be one of my favorite smells. Trying to act confident, I give him a knowing grin and arch one brow before saying, "That's what I thought." He circles my wrist with one of his hands and moves it up to his shoulder as he says,
"Bad idea."
I move my hand to the nape of his neck and explore his thick black hair as I respond, "I think it's a very good idea." When I lean forward to brush my lips across his, he avoids my kiss by turning to the side. After a long look, he steps back to release me as he says,
"I think they're gone."
I immediately miss the heat and tingling awareness of his close proximity. Deciding I may as well be open and vulnerable, I say, "I kind of wish they would come back. I like how affectionate you are when you think I may be in danger." Shaking his head at me, he asks,
"Why won't you listen to my warnings? A relationship between the two of us is a colossally bad idea, and it's not going to happen. I won't let it."
Lifting my chin and accepting the challenge, I say, "We'll see about that."
"You are impossible."
He mutters as he grabs my hand and takes off in the direction we were heading, before our marvelous interruption. I grin down at the ground as I think about the round, wet imprints, thanks to my damp dress on his shirt. Passers-by are sure to get a kick out of seeing them, but I don't get much time to see reactions since I have to practically run to keep up with him. Our kissing and bickering seems to have lit a fire under his feet. Or perhaps he's worried about once again seeing the guys who are after me. I suppose I should be afraid of them, since I'm the one they hate, but I have no doubt that Roman will do whatever it takes to protect me. I'm not sure what I expected Roman's home to be like, but the tiny, functional cottage he unlocks the front door to and ushers me inside is about as far as possible from what I would have imagined. Just inside the doorway, several huge pairs of shoes and work boots are strewn on the floor. The messiness isn't a surprise at all. In fact, I'm shocked it isn't worse. The word unkempt comes to mind as I scan the piles of unopened mail and the dirty dishes from his last meal stacked on the table. It's clear that a man lives here alone, but his home is not what I would call dirty. In fact, it smells rather nice. I can't quite put my finger on the fresh aroma, but it reminds me of a mixture of pine needles, seawater, the spearmint gum he seems to favor, and something else outdoorsy, maybe musk? What surprises me the most is how cozy and inviting his place is. I can easily imagine snuggling up with the unfolded quilt on the sofa, sipping from a glass of rosé, and reading a hot romance novel while Roman massages my feet. Are these things that my past self enjoyed, or does this coastal retreat just conjure those types of inviting mental images? My fists ball in frustration as I realize that I don't even know the simplest things about myself. It makes sense that I would like to relax, read, and have my feet rubbed, but maybe I get headaches from reading or drinking wine. Perhaps my feet are super ticklish. I just don't know.
I'll order us some dinner. What would you like?
Roman asks me. I shrug my shoulders before saying, I have no idea what I like and don't like, so just order double of whatever you would get if I wasn't here. He stares at me with an intense gaze for so long, I shift my weight from foot to foot. Determined not to appear weak or wishy-washy, I add, I'm sure that if you like it, I'll like it. It hits me then that I'm totally dependent on this man. After clearing my throat, I say, I don't have any money to pay for my dinner. He gives me a single brisk head nod, before saying,
I figured.
We continue standing there, staring at each other until it becomes awkward again. Eventually, he says,
I'll call and order our food while you change clothes. That damp dress must be uncomfortable.
I swipe my hand down the fancy dress. I'm not particularly fond of the pink shade or the over-the-top beadwork. I look like I'm ready to be a bridesmaid at an extremely cheesy wedding. But my former self must have liked it well enough to buy it and wear it to be dumped at sea. Or maybe I knew what was coming and decided it wouldn't be smart to ruin a dress that I actually like. Roman seems to be waiting for me to go change, so I remind him, I don't have any clothes to change into. His lips purse as if he's disappointed with himself for not thinking of it sooner, as he stalks toward a doorway that I presume leads to his bedroom. I'm not sure if he expects me to follow him, so I remain frozen where I am, staring after him. When he returns, he hands me a stack of soft cotton man clothes as he says,
They'll be big, but...
He lets the sentence hang unfinished, so I say, but they're dry, warm, and comfortable. Thank you. I insert extra enthusiasm into my tone for the last two words, hoping to let him know how grateful I am, but he waves it off as he indicates another door and says,
The bathroom's right in there.
Once I'm closed inside the small bathroom, I stare at my reflection in the mirror over his sink for a long time, hoping for some sort of recognition to set in. I've had this face my whole life, but the reflection staring back at me is a stranger. It makes absolutely no sense. I resent the former version of myself for rejecting Roman, or whatever she did to make the big, gorgeous man so wary of trusting me. He's my lifeline now, and previous Maya clearly did something to upset him. I wish I knew what it was, so I could find a way to make it up to him. I sense my memories nearby, lingering and teasing me from just over a wall I can't find a way to climb. They are so close, yet just out of reach. My head throbs as I try to grasp them. Deciding I could use a pain reliever, I open Roman's medicine chest. Almost as if he is standing right outside the door listening, he immediately says,
Don't go snooping around in there.
I grin at the giant, unopened box of condoms on the shelf, as I grab 2 aspirin and toss them back before using my hands as a cup for a drink of water from the sink. The promised bone-deep warmth of a hot shower is calling my name. Once I'm finished washing the salt water and grime from my skin, I use one of Roman's neatly folded towels to dry off, then dress in his oversized comfy clothes. After I emerge from the steamy bathroom, I purposefully carry the hideous wet dress with me and dump it in the kitchen trash can. This move makes my grumpy, irresistible rescuer laugh, and it's the best sound I've ever heard, that I remember anyway.
Chapter 6. When Maya comes out of my bathroom, she gazes at me like I am the answer to all of her dreams. It's an addictive look, but I remind myself not to get used to it. The moment her memories return, she'll never give me that enamored gaze again. I no longer have any doubt that her amnesia is real. She would have cracked by now if she remembered our previous interactions. There is no way she is this good of an actress. It would be smart of me to keep my distance from her, until I can get her to the authorities who can keep her safe, but she is making that particular mission hard. I can't contain the chuckle when she walks purposefully to my trash can and tosses in the sparkly, impractical dress she'd been wearing. She looks absolutely adorable swimming in my oversized clothes. I want nothing more than to stalk over to her, redacted. That kiss by the pier was supposed to just be a distraction to keep the people after her from seeing her face, but it quickly turned into so much more than that. Searing desire speared through my entire body the moment our lips met. Our sizzling chemistry is undeniable, and it's all I've been able to think of since that blasted kiss. But I have to keep my wits about me. Maya's safety, and probably my own, now that I'm officially involved in her rescue, depend on it. I ordered us a pizza for dinner, I tell her, as she makes herself at home on my leather couch.
Great.
She gives me a wide smile before saying,
One of these days, I want to try some of your fresh catch for dinner. I bet they're delicious.
They sure are, I readily agree before stopping myself. Remembering my vow to be distant with her, I add, but you're not going to be here that long. I need to get you turned over to the authorities, so they can safely return you to your family. The only reason I haven't already taken you in, or to get medical attention for that head wound, is that I don't know who we can trust. I don't want the men who left you for dead to find out that you're still alive. She gives me a gorgeous, pleading look as she says,
You can't send me back to a family I don't know. I want to stay with you.
Shaking my head, I say in a firm tone, that's not a good idea. I'm not the hero of your story, Maya.
Oh right.
She mutters.
You only rescued me from certain death, protected me from bad guys, clothed me, housed me, and are getting ready to feed me. Why would I think you are my hero?
The sarcasm is practically dripping from her tone. I'm not sure how to respond to convince her that I'm not the grand savior she believes me to be. I sit down beside her on the couch and say, I didn't do anything that anyone else wouldn't have done in the same situation.
That's not true,
She says, reaching over to place her hand on my shoulder. Even though I'm wearing a t-shirt, heat emanates along my skin from her simple touch. It feels good. Too good. I know that I should move away from her to send a clear message that nothing intimate is going to happen between us, but I can't muster the willpower to follow through on the urge. Seeming oblivious to my inner turmoil, Maya continues.
The only person I can think of who might do the same for me would be Sal, but he isn't nearly as cute as you are.
She whispers the last part near my ear, sending a delicious tingling shiver down my spine. This time I force myself to move away as I say, well, since you only remember 3 people other than me, and one of them would do the same things I have, that is too high of a percentage for my actions to be considered anything special or heroic. Maya lets out a decidedly undignified snort before saying,
You're bound and determined to convince me that you're not right for me, aren't you?
Shaking her head, she adds,
Bringing percentages into the mix. I'm not a math person.
Suddenly her eyes widen as her face lights up with delight.
I'm not a math person. I know that. I don't know how I know it, but I do. That rules out lots of occupations that focus on numbers like accountant and...
After thinking it over for a long moment, she waves a hand and says,
whatever other jobs use numbers at their core.
She has me chuckling again, despite my best intentions to remain aloof. When my laughter subsides, I say, yes, I'd say it's a safe bet that you don't work in the financial field. Obviously pleased with herself for figuring this out, she makes a check mark in the air with her finger as she says,
That's one vocation eliminated. Now we only have a few thousand more to consider.
Yeah, you're on your own for that, I tell her. The doorbell rings and I go answer it. As I return to the living room with the piping hot pizza box in hand, I'm a little taken aback to see that Maya has helped herself to 2 plates and the roll of paper towels from my kitchen. I'm not used to having someone make herself at home in my place, and it's unnerving to find that I don't mind it with this particular woman.
I thought we could eat here in front of the television and catch up on the news,
she suggests with a friendly smile as she brings 2 tall glasses of ice water to the coffee table. Her proposed plan is exactly what I would have done if she wasn't here, so I say, sure, that sounds fine. As she digs into the steaming pizza, I pick up the remote to turn on my favorite news station. She has already wolfed down most of her first slice by the time I have the television adjusted. Unfortunately, we have tuned in at the beginning of an extended commercial break, so we are forced to suffer through several injury attorney, used car, and closeout carpet advertisements. I almost pick up the remote to change the channel when the ED ad comes on, but Maya eases the awkward tension by taking a break from her second slice of pizza to say,
I've been thinking about these supposed bad guys you hid me from.
When I furrow my brows at her use of the word supposed, she leans in close to me to ask,
Did you make them up as an excuse to kiss me?
Absolutely not, I splutter, shocked that she would insinuate that I would purposely frighten her just for an opportunity to make out. Insulted, I add, I don't have to devise lies to get kisses.
I'm sure that's true,
She murmurs, leaning so close that I could easily take her lips with mine again. When her eyelids fall shut, it becomes obvious that is exactly what she wants me to do. It's what I want too, but I can't allow it to happen. Instead, I turn back to my pizza slice and take a huge bite to keep my mouth busy. After she opens her eyes and realizes that I'm not going to kiss her, she lets out a frustrated huff. Evidently deciding that she wasn't clear enough with her hints, she says in a breathy tone,
I saw a bottle of wine in the fridge. Let's pop it open, then later we can make use of that unopened box of condoms in the bathroom.
When my surprised cough emerges, I almost choke on the pizza in my mouth. She hands me my water glass, and I take a large gulp. This forward, flirty version of Maya is so different than the openly hostile one I met before. Granted, she had every right to be angry with me for what I did, but that woman had seemed like she would never be interested in someone like me. She's giving me an expectant look, so I answer, We can't, Maya. You wouldn't want me if you had your memories back. Ignoring my valid objection, she whispers,
This will be like my first time all over again, since I don't remember any of the other times when I redacted. I'm like a reborn redacted.
I can't keep the grin from forming before I say, I don't think it works that way. My eyes fall shut and the hairs on the back of my neck stand at attention as she whispers near my ear, To my brain, I'm a redacted. Don't you want to be with a redacted, Roman? My mind and redacted are both screaming the word, yes. But my mouth remains silent. When I don't answer her bold question, she emits a frustrated sigh and settles back on the sofa to watch the news, which has finally returned from the seemingly interminable break. As soon as I hear Maya's surprised gasp, my gaze follows hers. A picture of the beautiful woman beside me is on the screen with a caption that reads, Missing woman's sister believed to be behind kidnapping plot.
Chapter 7. I gape at the television screen, almost unable to believe my eyes. What kind of sister would devise a plot to kidnap me? Perhaps it's for the best that I don't have any memories of my previous life. Maybe it is my brain's way of protecting me from a family who is out to harm me. After watching the entire news clip about my disappearance, I'm more convinced than ever that I am the safest with Roman, which is why I become alarmed when he picks up his cell phone from the table. Who are you calling? My voice is screechy enough that he visibly cringes away from it.
You have a family and a life in Connecticut. We need to let them know that you're okay.
He uses a calm tone, as if I'm being irrational. Yes, I have a family who plotted to kidnap me. You can't just send me back to them. I don't even have the benefit of my memories to help protect me from them, I say, stunned that he would even consider handing me over to these horrible people.
The authorities will lock up your sister if she's truly behind all of this, but it's not just her, Maya. Did you see your parents' faces during that recorded clip? They look practically sick with worry for you.
He's right about that. The older couple pleading for any information about their younger daughter had exhaustion and sadness etched into their drawn features, but neither of them looked even remotely familiar to me. Not wanting to sound panicked, I take a deep breath before saying to Roman, But I don't know them. They are strangers to me, and they raised me with a deranged sister who created an evil plot against me. Please, Roman, you can't send me back to these people. It's quite possible that they are all crazy. His expression takes on some uncertainty, so I add, It's very likely that I would be in danger with them.
You're in danger here.
Roman half shouts. When I startle at his outburst, he softens his tone to add,
It's only a matter of time until the men who were after you realize that you didn't perish in the ocean where they left you to die.
Hearing my own death mentioned so casually is a bit jarring, but I have no doubt that I'm safer here with my surly rescuer than with a family I don't know and an evil sister who plotted to abduct me. In a whisper-soft voice I say, Please, Roman. His expression softens at my pleading puppy dog eyes before he says,
Okay.
I squeal and tip forward to kiss his cheek, so he quickly adds,
But we have to notify the authorities that you are safe, so they can let your family know. Your parents deserve at least that.
When I worry my lower lip between my teeth, he takes my clammy hand within his huge one. His fingers and palm are rough and calloused, but my tingling skin doesn't mind one bit. I can't keep from wondering how those work-worn hands would feel against the soft, tender flesh of my redacted. He shakes his cell phone with his free hand as he says,
We need to be smart about this, though. I'll contact the police in Connecticut, so they can update your family that you are safe, but that you have amnesia. I'll say that you're being monitored at a hospital here in Delaware, and that you've already been sedated for the night. That should keep any legitimate law enforcement away until morning. When we actually do go to the hospital first thing tomorrow, we'll check if anyone came looking for you during the night. If they did, we'll know we have a problem.
I'm not at all sure that the authorities will simply take Roman's word that I've been found and am resting comfortably at a medical facility, but I love the idea of getting to spend the night here alone with the gorgeous man, so I don't voice any objections. Instead I say, Sounds like a solid plan. I miss his hand holding mine when he stands and walks into his bedroom to make the phone call, but decide to make use of the time to scarf down more pizza. I don't want to overdo it and end up making myself sick, but my grumbling stomach is demanding more food. When Roman returns to the living room several minutes later, he sits down at the far end of the sofa. The waves of tension that have been rolling off him all evening have eased as if he has done his part to make this right. Deciding that I only have tonight to convince him to keep me around, I scoot closer to him and try to get him talking. Why don't you tell me more about Delaware? The only thing I remember about it is that it's one of the smallest states in the country. Roman nods his head as he says,
The only state smaller than us is Rhode Island.
He makes the statement with a great deal of pride, as if being a tiny state is some great feat. I smile and nod, encouraging him to go on. It's obvious that I've stumbled onto one of his favorite topics, when the man's eyes light up as he continues.
We were the first state to ratify the Constitution.
Oh wow, I murmur, feigning interest. Raising his huge hands to indicate the world outside this cottage, he says,
You've already seen much of the natural, scenic beauty that abounds here, especially along the shoreline. We also have low taxes, surprisingly affordable housing, and lots of chickens.
A chuckle bursts out of me at that last bit. Still grinning, I say, You should get a job working for the Chamber of Commerce. I'm ready to move here permanently, except for the chicken thing. I'm not sure if that's much of a selling point for me. Roman shrugs his wide shoulders before saying,
It's a wonderful place to live, but you already have a life with your family in Connecticut.
Yeah, one that I know nothing about, I mutter.
But you can't just abandon everyone and everything you've ever known,
He says rationally. It's clear from what we do know about me that things weren't going so well for me in Connecticut. I think I'm much better off taking my chances with the rugged, handsome boat captain who rescued me in my time of need.
You keep trying to make me out to be some kind of hero.
He shakes his head, as if he's exasperated by my stubborn need to see the best in him. You are my hero, I say as I reach out to rub the back of my index finger down the stubble along his jawline.
I'm not,
He says adamantly, before standing and stalking across the room. He runs his hand through his thick black hair. My fingers itch to do the same as I watch the shiny locks fall back into place, only slightly mussed. Suddenly, he turns to me and says,
It's time for bed. I'm tired, and we need to get moving early in the morning. I'll sleep on the sofa, and you can have my room.
It's a kind offer, but not one that I want. If I let this night slip by, without convincing him to let me stay with him, he'll dump me at the hospital in the morning without a second thought. I can't go live with those lunatic strangers who call themselves my family. Everything in my gut tells me that I'm better off here with Roman than I would be with them. As Roman retrieves the pizza box and puts the leftovers in the fridge, I take our dirty plates to the sink and say, "Thanks for the gentlemanly offer, but no. There are too many people after me for you to leave me alone in there all night."
I'll be right out here on the couch.
He reminds me, pointing at the sofa that's way too short for him to stretch out on. That's not good enough. I won't feel safe with you so far away. You're sleeping in the bed with me, I say firmly. I hold my breath as I wait for his reaction to my bold demand. He thinks it over for a long moment. Just when I think he's going to come up with some reason why my plan won't work, he lets out an exasperated sigh and says,
"Fine."
Turning to hide my wide grin, I say over my shoulder, "I'll use the bathroom first, then meet you in bed."
Chapter 8. I can't believe I let this blasted woman convince me to sleep in my bed with her. Tonight is bound to be complete torture for my redacted. I should have put my foot down and refused to agree to sleep in the same room with her, but she had seemed so scared and vulnerable about being alone, I couldn't bring myself to do it. Now, I'm going to spend the next several hours regretting my lack of determination. She's one of the hottest women I've ever seen, and she will be within my reach all night long. Every second is going to be a challenge to my willpower. I use the bathroom sink to splash some frigid water on my face, but it does nothing to quell my redacted. Since that didn't work, I go to the extreme of turning my shower temperature all the way to cold and rinse my body for a few moments in the icy spray. Despite that effort, I know that the minute I climb into bed next to Maya, my redacted, resolving to simply turn my back on her and go to sleep as soon as my head hits the pillow, I emerge from the bathroom. After checking that the exterior doors are locked and turning off the lights, I head into my bedroom. Maya is already snuggled into my bed like she belongs there. The bedside lamp is the only light illuminating the dim room. My gaze is drawn to the box of protection sitting on the table by the lamp. She obviously took them from my bathroom medicine chest and brought them in here. When I bug my eyes out at her, she gives me a knowing smile as she shrugs and says,
"Just in case."
"Arg, this night is going to seem endless." I shake my head at her, pretending to be exasperated, then look down so she won't see my wide grin as I walk toward the far side of the bed. After switching off the lamp, I climb under the covers and flop down flat on my back. As I'd suspected, I stare at the ceiling, unable to even think about sleeping. It doesn't help that Maya is as restless and antsy as a caged tiger. Wiggle waggle twitch scratch flip flop huff puff sigh. I put up with her fidgeting as long as I can before grouching. "We'll never get to sleep if you don't lie still. You're turning over more than a rotisserie chicken." She chuckles before saying,
"I can't sleep."
"Yeah, I figured that out. Have you changed your mind about me sleeping in the other room?"
"No."
She answers too quickly, as if she's truly terrified of being left alone. Tempering her tone, she adds,
"I'll try not to move anymore so you can get to sleep."
She's as motionless as a statue, but I can sense her alertness. Sure enough, when I slowly turn my head to the side to look at her, I find her staring up at the ceiling with wide, unblinking eyes. This is almost worse than the tossing and turning. "Are you even breathing?" I ask her.
"Barely."
She admits. "You're probably just uncomfortable sleeping with a stranger," I suggest, as we each turn onto our sides to face each other.
"That's the thing. You're not a stranger to me. To my mind, you are the only person I know in the entire world,"
she says quietly. It hits me then how awful this must be for her. Her entire life has been shrunk down to a matter of days. I should have realized how difficult and frightening this is from your perspective, but there are other people you can trust. Her tone is filled with anger when she snaps.
"Like who? Jimbo, Marty, and Sal? They are the only people I remember ever talking to, other than you."
Before I can respond, she continues.
"I don't know those strangers on the news who claim to be my parents. They might be good people, but it's also quite possible that they're not. I'm pretty darn sure my so-called sister is pure evil. So who else am I supposed to trust, Roman?"
I don't have an answer for her. As much as I want to believe she would be safe with the authorities or in a medical facility, I'm not confident that it's the truth. There are some really bad people after her, and I don't know how deep their reach is. Maya's beautiful eyes glimmer in the moonlight streaming in through the window as she blinks at me. She's obviously expecting me to respond with the name of someone else she can trust, but my mind is coming up empty. It's starting to feel like I'm truly all she has. This new, vulnerable version of Maya is darn near impossible to resist. I lift my hand to caress her cheek. Her eyes drift shut, and she lets out a satisfied sigh as she nuzzles gently into my touch, as if my work-roughened hands feel as good to her as the softest silk would against her skin. It's difficult to believe that this is the same woman I met before. Or is she? That woman was angry and bitter, and she talked incessantly. This woman is sensitive and loving. Plus, there's something so innocent about her. My entire body aches to protect her. The heavy-lidded, desirous look she's giving me makes it obvious that she wants me. I want her too, more than anything, but the terrifying thought that she'll hate me forever if her memories return holds me back. She softens her lips and leans in, silently demanding a kiss. I ache to give her one, but instead force myself to lean up to gently kiss the bandage covering the wound on her forehead. We can't, Maya. This head injury is the only reason you are even considering being with me. If you remembered everything, you would not want me.
But I do want you.
She responds in a husky whisper. When I remain motionless, she adds,
So much. Don't you want me?
The hurt feelings are evident in her tone. Hoping to make her at least feel better about that, I quickly answer, I need you more than I've ever wanted anyone. Every cell in my body craves you, Maya. It's all I can do to hold back from claiming you as mine, but if I'm the one you trust, then you have to believe me when I say, this is not a good idea.
How can something that feels so right be wrong?
She asks. Her lips brush across mine in a whisper-soft kiss. Desire slices through me, hot and all-consuming. My voice comes out in a croaky whisper when I say against her lips, You're making it impossible for me to resist you.
Then don't.
She tells me as her palm glides up my back. Her touch creates a heated, tingling trail in its wake that leaves me wanting more. Some small sliver of my brain knows that I should resist, but the rest of my body refuses to listen. In this moment, in my bed, nothing matters but mindless pleasure with this captivating woman. You asked for it, I remind her before vigorously returning her kiss. She lets out a happy, throaty groan as I plunge my tongue between her lips. We kiss like it's our first kiss, or our last kiss, or the most important kiss of our lives. We kiss like our existence depends on it, holding nothing back as we claim one another's mouths. Passion sizzles between us as our lips and tongues redacted. I've never been so profoundly affected by simply kissing someone. When our redacted finally connect, it's quite possible that the entire bed will implode with white-hot passion. I moan into her mouth as her hand finds its way redacted. Breath hisses out between my teeth as she redacted. A woman's touch has never felt this good. It shouldn't feel this amazing. After I remove my shirt, her fingers slide redacted. My skin prickles at her caress. Needing to feel hers do the same, I redacted. She's redacted, as if this is the greatest feeling she's ever encountered. It hits me then that this is probably the best feeling she remembers having. It's heady to know that the unprecedented reaction my body is having to hers is reciprocated. I redacted. There is enough illumination from the moonlight to see how utterly gorgeous she is. I murmur the single word aloud as I gaze down at her, beautiful. She redacted. Unable to resist her even a moment longer, I lean down to redacted. The more I give her, the more she demands. The more she takes, the more I give. We spiral, lost in a delirious haze of redacted. I'm in no rush to move things along. Proving that she's even more anxious and desperate than I am, Maya's hand redacted. Redacted. When I lunge for the box, she scrambles redacted. Redacted. Returning her thrilled gaze, my entire body thrums with anticipation as I say, redacted, sweetheart.
Chapter 9. Anticipation practically crackles in the air as I redacted. We are gazing into each other's eyes and grinning like fools. Granted, I don't remember hardly anything about my life before this moment, but I can't imagine that being intimate with someone can possibly get any better than this. My entire body is zinging with happy tingles. I may not have the benefit of a lifetime of cherished memories with Roman, but I know he's a good, solid man. I also know that I want him with every fiber of my entire being, and from the loving, heavy-lidded gaze he's beaming up at me, it's obvious that he craves me just as urgently. When redacted, it's a heady, powerful feeling to know that I am this huge, strong man's entire focus in this moment. Tipping down, I press my lips against his. My long hair creates a thick curtain of privacy around our heads as I loom over him. My hand redacted. His redacted. Unable to deny his silent plea, my mouth falls open as I redacted. I sit up, savoring the redacted. Both of his hands redacted. When our gazes lock, his is filled with what could only be described as adoration. I want to soak in that loving look and never let it go as liquid heat pools in my belly. One of his hands redacted. Redacted. Roman looks up at me as if I am the answer to all of his dreams as I redacted. I want to tell him it's the other way around, he is my dream man, but my mouth won't work. I'm too lost in redacted. Redacted. Dazzling starbursts dance in front of my closed eyelids. My body redacted. I'm redacted. He redacted. Redacted.
You're mine.
He growls, confirming that he's experiencing the same mind-numbing possession that I am. Yes. I redacted.
Redacted.
He demands. It's as if he's in control of all of my senses. My body redacted. Redacted. Sensations of safety, satisfaction, and triumph wash over me. Savoring the sense of closeness to him that overwhelms my system, I turn my head to press a tender kiss to the damp skin on his thick neck.
You're mine.
He reminds me in a husky whisper. I'm yours, I agree, not caring one bit that it's an archaic notion. He makes me feel cherished and adored, and I want to be his, and only his. After tipping his head up to look down at me for a long moment, Roman gives me a sweet kiss on the lips before saying,
And I'm yours, Maya. Chapter 10. It's official. I've lost my darn mind. I've never given so much of myself to a woman before, and I'm not at all sure I like the heady, out-of-control feeling. Being intimate with Maya was so much more than just the connection of our redacted. It was almost like a melding of our souls. But that doesn't make sense. My logical mind knows the concept of two becoming one is crazy, but the rest of me doesn't care to listen to reason. My heart and soul want to believe that she and I are meant to be together. Forever. In a faraway, dreamy voice, Maya asks me,
Is it always like that?
My traitorous mouth wants to blurt out, like what? Life-changing, earth-shattering, and awe-inspiring. Thankfully, I'm able to refrain from voicing those sappy sentiments aloud. I must take too long to answer, because Maya clarifies her question.
Is being intimate with someone always that wonderful?
Deciding to go for pure honesty, even if it makes me seem a bit soft, I say, no, sweetheart. This was something special. I've never felt anything like it. Maya's happy grin at my words makes me glad I shared the truth with her.
I don't remember ever having redacted before, but something tells me that this was special for me too. How could it not be?
I'm pretty sure her question is rhetorical, but I shrug my shoulders anyway.
I'm glad I remembered how to do it. It must be muscle memory, like riding a bike.
She says. After pondering it for a moment, she adds,
A bike that gives me redacted.
The chuckle bursts out from deep in my chest. The woman is an absolute delight. She's making it impossible not to fall for her. Seeming to enjoy my amusement, Maya adds,
I'd be in terrific shape if that were the case, because I'd ride my bicycle everywhere.
Me too, I agree, before adding, but that seems like a good way to get arrested for indecent exposure or some other unseemly crime.
Yep,
She says as she trails her fingers lightly along my arm, making the hairs rise in the tingling wake she creates. Her eyes brighten just before she says,
I guess I'll just stick to redacted you then.
Sounds like a great plan to me, I say before leaning in to kiss her. I reluctantly pull back and tell her, I need some recuperation time, but I'll be ready for round 2 in a while, if you're up for it.
Can't wait.
She assures me with a quick peck on the cheek. She whirls over and snuggles her redacted into me. My redacted, making me wonder if round 2 should happen sooner than later. Just as I'm getting ready to suggest that, she guides my hand up to redacted. After taking a deep, satisfied sigh, her breath evens out as she falls asleep cradled in my embrace. Sleep eludes me with the woman of my dreams curled against my body. I love it that she feels safe enough with me to drift off so easily, despite the turmoil in the short clip of her life that she remembers. Our bodies are radiating heat, so I pull just the sheet up over us, being careful not to disturb her. I close my eyes and breathe deeply, savoring the redacted. Sleep must eventually find me, because I awaken with a start. I'm sprawled out like a starfish on the bed. Maya is gone. Fear has my heart racing as I wonder if her memories returned and she hightailed it out of here to get away from me. I try not to allow my mind to even wonder if the people after her somehow managed to get in here and steal her without waking me. That terrifying thought is incomprehensible. I'm honestly not sure I could live through it if something awful happened to Maya, especially after she so lovingly trusted me to keep her safe. Suddenly, a glowing light in the kitchen catches my attention. I don't even consider pausing to put on my shorts. I do briefly wonder if I should grab a weapon, but decide instead to get in there first to see who or what I'm dealing with. I stand in the threshold of my bedroom door staring in wonder at the glorious sight before me. Maya is redacted in the light of the open refrigerator door, tipping a bag of shredded sharp cheddar cheese up to her mouth. Certain parts of me, most notably my redacted, want to stride across this room and redacted. But a warring side of my consciousness wants to remain here and look at the impossibly beautiful woman to forever sear this lovely image into my memory. The decision is made for me when the floorboard creaks beneath my feet. Maya freezes and turns wide eyes in my direction. After swallowing a mouthful of the shredded cheese, she says,
I was hungry and couldn't find anything else to snack on. I guess we'll find out if I'm lactose intolerant.
Grinning like a fool at the irresistible woman, I say, I think the pizza would have hit you by now if you were.
Good point.
She agrees, before tipping the bag of cheese up to her mouth again. Holding the bag out in my direction, she asks,
Want some?
Oh, I definitely want some, but I'm not interested in the cheese, I tell her as I stride purposefully in her direction. Her eyes widen with excitement when she realizes my intention. She tries to slide the zipper to seal the bag of cheese closed, but her hands fumble with it. I grab the still open bag and toss it to the floor. Pieces of the shredded cheese scatter, but neither of us care. The refrigerator door closes, plunging the room into darkness as I redacted. Without wasting a moment, I redacted for my late-night snack.
Chapter 11. I wake up feeling warm, relaxed, and absolutely scrumptious. Roman and I are both redacted, and the sheet is tangled around us. He is sprawled across me like he owns me, and I'm perfectly okay with that. I know from his words and actions last night that he belongs to me just as much as I am his. My lifetime memories may be limited, and some of the few I do have are rather unpleasant, but I can't imagine a love life any better than what I've discovered with Roman. He is my savior, my rock, and my protector. On top of all of that, he's redacted in ways that leave me spent, breathless, and deliriously happy. I cherish this time while I'm awake, and he's still dozing. The big tough man looks so gentle and peaceful in his sleep. Of course, he showed me more than once last night how tender and loving he can be. Then, as if he senses right when I need it, his redacted side takes over. It's like our redacted are completely synced with each other. Of course, there's no way for me to be completely sure, but I can't imagine that I've ever felt anything like it. It's like Roman and I were made to be with one another. This has to be as good as it gets. The last thing I want to do is move from this bed. I'm happy here, and today's events are likely to bring about some uncomfortable situations that I don't want to deal with, like Roman pushing me to accept a family that I don't remember. I'd much rather stay here in this secluded, glowing bubble of happiness the two of us have created in his home. Unfortunately, my body has needs. I do my best not to jostle Roman too much as I extricate myself from his loving arms and scurry to the restroom through the morning chill that has settled in the house. When I emerge from the bathroom, Roman is in the kitchen starting a pot of coffee. I'd been hoping he'd still be redacted, so I'm disappointed to find that he is wearing his loose shorts. After going to his room to retrieve the oversized shirt he loaned me, I join him in the kitchen. He turns at the sound of my approach and gives me a wide, happy grin.
That shirt is yours now. It never looked anywhere near that good on me.
I smile back as he hands me a cup of the freshly made coffee. After taking a tentative sip of the strong brew, I wrinkle up my nose in distaste.
Maybe you take it with cream and sugar.
He asks. I shrug my shoulders in answer because I truly have no idea. When he hands me the containers, I add hefty doses of both, figuring that it couldn't make the nasty-tasting beverage any worse. Once I have the coffee heavily doctored, I take another tentative sip. Since Roman seems to be waiting for my reaction, I nod my head and say, much better. After the toaster pops, he turns toward me to say,
I'm not normally a big breakfast eater, so I don't have many options.
no worries. We can stop at the grocery and pick up some food later today. I'm excited to discover more of what I like and don't like. The look he's giving me is not filled with the shared anticipation I'd been hoping for. Instead, his gaze is downturned and serious. My entire body deflates as I realize what's going on. Please don't do this, Roman. You and I both know that last night was special. We belong together. You can't make me go back to a family and a life that I don't remember in Connecticut. It's obvious by how I ended up that things weren't going very well for me before. I lift my hand and indicate my bandaged forehead to emphasize my very valid point. When his gaze remains downcast, I ask in a quiet voice, don't you want to be with me?
Of course, I want to be with you.
He half shouts, startling me. Rushing forward until we are toe-to-toe, he gently lifts my chin with his large index finger and looks deeply into my eyes as he says in an eerily quiet tone,
I want to be with you more than anything, but we are not right for each other, Maya.
I don't like the way he overemphasized the word, not. Even though I remain hopeful that I'll be able to change his mind about our potential for a future together, he seems just as determined as ever to shoot down our chances. Before I have the opportunity to fight more for us, he says in a no-nonsense tone,
We have places to be. Get dressed.
With that, he stalks toward the bathroom and slams the door firmly behind him. Unsure what else to do, I obediently go to his room and slide on the loose sweatpants and oversized flip-flops he loaned me. I'm certainly not going to win any fashion awards in these baggy clothes, but at least they're comfortable and decent. After I emerge from the bedroom, I find some jelly in the refrigerator and coat the forgotten pieces of toast. By the time I wolf down 2 of the 4 slices, Roman comes out of the bathroom looking and smelling fresh. I wouldn't have believed it to be possible, but he's even hotter when his hair is damp and slicked back. And that clean manly smell. I could definitely get used to breathing that in every morning. I'd washed myself with his products when I'd showered last night, but they didn't seem to scent me with the same sensual, addictive aroma that's wafting from him. Roman accepts the plate of jelly-coated toast I hold out for him, and eats it in just a few bites, as he stares out at the shimmering water through the kitchen window. After he finishes eating and takes a final swig from his coffee mug, he says,
It's still early, so I can get you checked in at the hospital before going out for the morning run on my boat.
This is the last thing I wanted to hear from him. Shaking my head, I say, I'm fine. I don't need the hospital. I can go with you on the boat.
You're fine, huh?
He levels a no-nonsense stare at me. At my confirming nod, he asks,
How old are you? What is your address? Who was your first crush? What is your favorite color?
Even though he has obviously made his point, I choose the only one that seems easy to answer and say, green.
What shade of green?
He challenges me. Lifting my chin, I answer immediately, emerald. It seems like a pleasant enough shade, especially since it's the brilliant color of Roman's gorgeous eyes. It may not have been my favorite color before, but it certainly is now. Those bright green stunners narrow in my direction, but he doesn't call me out. Instead, he says,
In any case, you need to be checked out by a doctor today, and there are lots of people who want to see and talk to you.
No one that I care to see, I pout, but he stalks toward the door, leaving me no choice but to follow him.
Chapter 12. Normally, I love being out on the water. The quiet lapping of the waves against the hull of my ship, the briny air, and the bright sunshine combine to create an addictive sensation that pleases all of my senses. But today, I'm just not feeling it. All I can think about is the heartbroken look in Maya's gaze as she watched me leave her hospital room. She's safe there, I remind myself for what seems like the 1,000th time. The medical professionals will figure out why her memories are missing and help her get them back. They know how best to care for her. Plus, her family is there now. The twin looks of relief and delight on her parents' faces had been undeniable when they rushed into her room. Maya's sister Penny and her cop boyfriend Austin had appeared just as thrilled to see with their own eyes that Maya is safe and sound. They made quick work of explaining that Maya's kidnapping was the work of a madman with an elaborate plan to hurt both of the Summers sisters. Apparently, a former student of Penny's felt wronged by her grading system that kept him from playing in a pivotal football game. The man also briefly dated Maya in adulthood, likely as a misguided way to get back at his former teacher. Neither woman realized the other had a connection with him. When Maya dumped him, he started planning a deranged vendetta against the sisters that culminated with Maya's kidnapping and a massive setup to make it look like Penny was behind it. Luckily, Austin figured out what was going on just in the nick of time, and the criminal mastermind behind Maya's kidnapping has been taken out. It is a huge relief to know that her sister wasn't actually involved in the plot against Maya. I should feel good about leaving her with family and loved ones who know her history and care about her. They have her best interest at heart, so I can walk away knowing that she is safe. I'm sure that with their help, her memories will return soon. My part in this is done. It should be that simple, but it's not. I don't want to give up and leave Maya. She made me feel more alive in the short time I've known her than I've ever experienced in all my years. She is the one I want, but our days were always numbered right from the start. If I somehow managed to convince her to stay here in Delaware with me, I would constantly be living in fear of her memories returning. Of course, I could just rip off the proverbial bandage and tell her the truth myself, but then I would lose her anyway. Our relationship is a lose-lose situation. No matter which way I play it, Maya will end up hating me. I should have never allowed us to get involved with each other, but I'd been so overwhelmed by desire that I'd felt helpless to stop it. I wanted her too much to deny her anything she asked of me. I still do. I should forget all about Maya and move on with my life. I'm truly no worse off than before I met her, even though the desperate ache in my heart says otherwise. The person that coined the phrase, "It's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all," clearly didn't ever experience this gut-wrenching pain that's attacking my system at the thought of never seeing Maya again. The whole time I'm on the boat, I try to convince myself that it's for the best to make a clean break, without seeing her again. Even as I'm thinking it, I know without a doubt that I'm going to go to the hospital one last time to make sure she's truly okay. I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't at least do that. It will make it even harder for me to leave after seeing her again, but things between us feel too unfinished the way they are now. Perhaps I'm just looking for an excuse to see her one more time, but it seems overly harsh not to at least check in on her. I would do at least that, even for a casual friend, and Maya is so much more than that to me. Once the decision is made to go to the hospital, the heavy weight that has been bearing down on my chest is immediately lifted. I go through the motions at work, but my mind and heart are already picturing the perfect bouquet of colorful wildflowers to take to Maya at the hospital. As soon as I dock, I text the boys to let them know the race is on. I let them bicker with each other, as I do a quick spray down of the boat. When they decide I have enough for the three of them to split, I take the offered money from each of them, and allow them to divvy up the morning's catch themselves. Normally, I like to stick around to witness their drama as they try to evenly distribute the crabs. Chatting with them is also a great opportunity to catch up on local gossip, since the trio knows everyone in town and their business. But today, I'm on a mission. I'm too excited to see Maya to waste any time shooting the breeze with these three yahoos. The men notice my abrupt departure and call out after me, but I just wave a hand in the air behind me without bothering to look back. I hear them muttering about me becoming a diva, but I don't take the bait to start an argument. After stopping by the flower shop, I head straight to Maya's room at the hospital. I'm surprised to find her sitting on the edge of her bed, wearing a stylish outfit that her family must have brought her from home. The clothes hug her curves much better than the bulky sweats I loaned her. Her parents and sister are circled around her, and all eyes turn to look at me as I enter the room. Maya's gaze lights up with excitement at the sight of me, letting me know that her memories haven't yet returned. After I quietly close the door behind me, Maya lets out 3 ridiculously loud sneezes in a row, making me hope she's not allergic to the flowers I've brought. The sneezes are so noisy that we all stare at her in stunned silence for a long moment after she finishes. Finally, her mother says,
"Bless you, sweetheart."
Maya looks startled by the violent sneezes as she shakes her head and says,
Whoa. Excuse me. I always sneeze 3 times in a row.
Her eyes widen in surprise as she locks gazes with me and squeals.
I always sneeze 3 times in a row. I don't know how I know that. I just do. That's right.
Penny agrees, nodding her head and beaming with pride over her sister's breakthrough.
You've always done that. We both do.
When the woman turns to her parents for confirmation, they both nod their heads in agreement. Maya holds her hand out toward me, so I step forward to set the vase of flowers on her bedside table before accepting her offered hand. One by one, she makes eye contact with her parents and sister before saying in a firm tone,
I'm sure you're all wonderful people, but I don't know you right now. I do, however, know Roman, so I'm going to stay here with him for a while. I hope you'll all understand.
Her words surprise and thrill me. There's nothing I'd like more than to have Maya live here with me for the rest of our days, but the sand in our hourglass is already slipping away. Once more of her memories return, she'll want nothing further to do with me.
That's fine, baby girl. We all want what's best for you.
Maya's father weighs in. Her mother adds,
Of course, we think the best thing is for you to be surrounded by the family that loves you. But if you want to stay here with this man temporarily, we'll try to find a way to accept that.
It's obvious by the older woman's pinched expression that she isn't at all on board with Maya staying here, but at least she didn't completely shut down the idea. Maya beams a wide, beautiful smile at me, as if we have won a battle. I return the grin, but my smile is edged with the sadness of knowing that this can't possibly last. As if the universe is out to prove that point, the hospital door bursts open and the criminals who left Maya for dead stroll into her room. I watch the blood drain from Maya's complexion when they take a quick look around the small, sterile room, then say,
Thanks for helping us find this witch again, Roman.
Chapter 13. I slowly shake my head, but it only serves to make the dull pounding directly behind my eyebrows worse. I hope I misunderstood, but it sure sounds like the criminals skulking around my room are working with Roman. Worse yet, they use the word again as if we've all been in this situation before. All I know is that I somehow ended up stranded on a buoy in the middle of the ocean. But Roman couldn't have had anything to do with that. He is my rescuer, right? The hurt must be shining through in my expression as I search Roman's face for answers. His whispered,
I'm sorry,
does nothing to alleviate my fears. One of the men elbows the other in the gut and says,
I told you after we saw that news clip about this stupid witch's rescue that if we followed Roman, he'd lead us right back to her. She's ours for the taking now.
Turning back to the criminals, Roman growls,
She isn't going anywhere with you.
The 2 men give each other bewildered looks before one of them says,
You didn't have any problem giving her to us last time? What's the matter? Did you have an attack of conscience? Or you don't want her family to see what a money-hungry creep you are?
Maybe he's trying to get even more money out of us.
The taller one suggests.
Oh no. We paid you for her once and that's all you're getting. We still have to deliver her to our contacts to get our bounty.
The pudgy one weighs in. A ball of hot lava burns in my throat as I blink up at Roman. He's giving me a desperate, downcast expression. I don't want to believe it's true, but he looks so guilty. In a scratchy whisper, I ask him, You handed me over to these idiots for money?
Hey, now watch your mouth.
One of the morons says, but I don't waste any energy on them. My sole focus is on Roman as he slowly nods his head to confirm. He's staring at the white and gray speckled tile floor as if he's completely ashamed of himself. And he should be. I can't imagine why he would ever be willing to leave me with these terrible men. It's simply not right. Even if we didn't know or like each other, he had no right to do that. The mere idea of the horrifying things they could have done to me makes an uneasy shiver race down my spine. The tall guy whips out a gun, which makes us all take in a collective gasp. He speaks in a rational tone as if he's explaining weather patterns to us, even though his words are terrifying.
We're going to take this stupid redacted with us now. We've been hired to deliver her alive, so everyone, stay calm and we'll get out of here without anyone being hurt.
I scramble back on the bed, like one of Roman's desperate skittering crabs, unwilling to go anywhere with these dangerous foul-mouthed buffoons. Penny's slight voice crack is the only indication that she isn't completely calm when she says, Who hired you to deliver her? Was it a man named Teddy on the dark web? The two look at each other, as if they are uncertain if they should reveal that information or not. Eventually, the tall guy says,
We don't know his name. We're just part of a chain to get her where she needs to be, just like Roman is.
All eyes dart to the big, handsome boat captain I thought I could trust. His gaze is still downcast, but he has angled his body between me and the barrel of the gun, as if he's trying to do what he can to block and protect me from these madmen. Reminding myself that it's too late for that, since he already handed me over to them once, I purse my lips and say in as firm a tone as I can muster, I'm not going anywhere with you two idiots.
Oh yes you are. I'm not giving up the big payday we're owed for delivering you to the person that hired us. You're a pain in the neck, loudmouth Spitfire, and you've already been way more trouble than you're worth. I'd prefer just to kill you and get it over with, but our instructions were clear to keep you alive. That doesn't mean we can't conk you over the head again and drag you by your hair.
The short, stocky one sneers. I cringe back from his gravelly, unemotional voice. It's surreal to hear someone talk so casually about hurting me and sending me to a horrible fate that could quite possibly include my death.
Come on. Let's go.
He tries to reach around Roman to grab my upper arm. Roman shoves his hand away as he says between gritted teeth,
No.
The man pulls back, obviously intending to punch Roman, but Roman reacts fast and undercuts him instead. As the surprised criminal reels backward, the tall man lifts the gun and points it in Roman's direction. Time seems to spiral in super slow motion as I gasp at the horrifying sight before me and scream the word, no. Roman may have betrayed me, but I will not sit quietly by and allow him to be shot. My heart is broken into a million pieces, but those shattered pieces still belong to him. Reacting rather than thinking, I lunge to put myself between the man I love and the bullet aimed in his direction. With impossibly fast reflexes, Roman flings out his arm and uses his large hand to block me and stop my forward momentum. Terror ices my veins as the startlingly loud sound of a bullet firing echoes around the small hospital room.
Chapter 14. Stunned silence encapsulates the small room as we each blink in shock and attempt to take in the scary scene that just took place like a frightening movie playing out in real life. It all happened so fast, I'm left wondering exactly what went down. Even before I take stock of my own body for injuries, I look to Maya to make sure she hasn't been hurt. Her concerned gaze is roving over me as if she's doing the same thing. Once we're each convinced that the other is not injured, our heads turn in tandem toward the doorway. Austin is standing just inside the threshold with his gun pointed in the direction of the tall criminal, who had been aiming his weapon to fire at me. An anguished moan from the floor near the foot of the bed makes it obvious that the loud gunshot we heard was from the cop's weapon, rather than the gun of the criminal threatening us. Maya and I lock gazes as soon as we realize what has happened. Her eyelids are brimming with unshed tears, and I know the exact kind of overwhelming relief she is feeling because it is surging warm and sweet through my system as well. Austin rushes forward to handcuff the man I just punched as medical professionals scurry in to treat the gunshot victim. Even though the entire scene likely only took a matter of moments, it felt like an eternity as I worried that Maya or someone important to her might be injured or killed. For the first time in my life, my own safety had been of little to no concern to me. All that mattered was Maya and her well-being. It's an unsettling sensation to realize that someone else is so important to me and has complete control over my feelings. My heart races into overdrive at the mere idea of Maya being hurt. I'm quite certain I wouldn't know how to go on with my life if she hadn't survived. There's a good chance that she'll want nothing to do with me going forward after today's events and revelations, but at least I'll know she's out there somewhere living her life. The thought of her no longer existing creates a painful churning in my stomach that I most likely wouldn't ever get over. Despite my best efforts to the contrary, the irresistible woman has wormed her way straight into a permanent place in my heart. I've never felt this strongly for anyone. Even if she hates me, as she should, I love her and want only the best for her. Her happiness is infinitely more important to me than my own. As frantic activity takes over in the room, it's as if we're the only two people in the world. She hurls herself at me, and I wrap her in my loving embrace, thrilled to have one last chance to hold her in my arms. Just as I'd expected, when reality begins to settle in, she pulls back from me. She gives my chest a half-hearted punch as she asks me with watery eyes.
How could you?
I don't have an answer to give her that doesn't sound like a lame excuse. I'm ashamed of my part in her kidnapping, and I have been since the moment I agreed to it. Even though I'd tried to convince myself that she would ultimately be safe, I knew in my heart that these two thugs were bad news from the start. I never should have agreed to help them shuttle her, no matter how much money they were offering. I told myself that they would just find someone else to help if I didn't do it. I'd even tried to hate the angry, spirited captive, and get myself to believe that she deserved to be stolen away from her life. But none of it worked. I knew what I was doing was wrong, and no amount of money in the world could make it right. I'm sorry, I whisper again, even though I know the words fall painfully short. She shakes her head, looking miserable and like she can't understand my involvement in all of this. There's nothing I can say to explain it to her, because I don't get it myself. I'd been desperate for money, and I'd convinced myself that I could do something that I never should have agreed to. I had forced myself to believe that she wasn't in any real danger, but she obviously had been. It's only thanks to Austin's fast-acting police skills and Maya's own ability to escape the criminals in the first place that she's still alive. It had been obvious when I'd been transporting her to them that the woman was a wily and ferocious tigress. She'd further proven that by somehow getting away from two men with weapons, who were determined to deliver her to their boss for cash. After the injured man is taken out of the room on a gurney, Austin begins reading the handcuffed man his Miranda rights as he guides him out of the hospital room. Eerie quiet settles over the room now that the crazy flurry of activity has died down. Guilt weighs down my shoulders. I've been feeling it since I first agreed to help deliver Maya, but it grows even worse when I see her devastated expression. Knowing that the hurt look drawing down her features is because of me, and what I've done is absolutely heartbreaking. The last thing in the world I want is to hurt Maya, yet that is exactly what I've managed to do. Her family members are openly glaring at me, but all that matters to me is Maya's crushed expression. Beyond ashamed of my role in this, I clear my throat and say, I should probably go. Maya remains silent, but the devastated expression in her beautiful eyes says more than any words could convey.
Yes, you should,
Penny says in a firm, protective tone. I search for the right words to make this better for Maya, but none come. Nothing would be sufficient to convey my deep regret for putting her in danger. There is no excuse for my actions, so rather than trying to plead my unwinnable case, I nod my head and leave her in peace.
Chapter 15. It's incomprehensible to me that Roman had anything to do with my kidnapping. It simply doesn't add up. He's a good man. I know it in my heart. My injured brain doesn't know much, but I do know that. I can't be wrong about him. Every cell in my body refuses to believe it. My family, on the other hand, seems determined to point out all of the ways Roman is wrong for me and how much I belong in Connecticut with them. I'm sure they truly believe that they're right, but I don't know them and I don't want to leave here with them. Each time they bring up something they think I'll remember and give me hopeful gazes, I feel like a failure for disappointing them, yet again. It's truly exhausting. I don't want to lie and pretend like I remember things I don't, but it's easy to see that they are hurt and growing impatient with my utter lack of memories. We do share one bonding moment in the hotel suite, when Penny and I each grab an Oreo cookie from the package, twist off the top, and scrape our front teeth through the white cream filling. The two older adults share a momentous look before the woman says,
You two have always eaten your Oreos that way. Remember, Maya?
So much hope is sparkling in her pretty blue eyes that I don't have the heart to disappoint her. Instead, I lift the half-eaten cookie and say, apparently part of my brain remembers. She evidently takes that as a win, because she nods her head and says,
And the rest we'll remember soon enough, especially once we get you home in familiar surroundings with all of your things.
They seem kind enough, and I really don't want to hurt them, but the last thing I want to do is go home with these people. The pressure they're putting on me to remember is almost overwhelming here, so I can't imagine how intense it will be once they start showing me pictures and parading out my favorite things. My life will be filled with them dragging me places, attempting to jog my memory at every turn, and I just don't have the energy for that. Sure, it would be great if my memories returned, but the more we try to force it, the more out of reach it feels. I really just want to go find Roman and have him explain away his part in all of this. Of course, I can't think of any reason that would be forgivable, but that doesn't stop me from yearning for one. My family of strangers begins packing their belongings and discussing plans for our return trip to Connecticut. They keep referring to it as the place where I belong, yet I've never felt like I belong less anywhere. I want to belong with Roman. He's the only person I know and trust right now, but apparently that trust is misguided. Beyond frustrated, I announce to the group, I'm going for a walk. The two women share a concerned look as if they are worried that I may not be able to find my way back, but neither voices an objection when I grab the black leather jacket, which they keep telling me I love to wear, and stalk toward the sweets door. Once outside, I'm uncertain where to go. I want to find my way back to Roman's house, but I don't know what to say to him. I'm furious and hurt, but I still care so deeply for the blasted man. Deciding that he probably isn't home anyway, I walk to the docks, intending to sit by the shore for a while. Maybe the fresh sea breeze will bring me some needed peace and clarity. I'm delighted to see a familiar face on one of the benches looking out over the harbor. Sal's face lights up at the sight of me as he pats the spot next to him and says,
Sit down and relax for a spell, Maya.
Giving him a warm smile, I do just that. There are only a handful of people who are at all familiar to me, so it's a true blessing to have found one of my favorites. Leaning in close, the older man says,
I figure if I'm sitting right here when the boats come in, Jimbo and Marty won't have any chance of getting down here before me.
Good plan. I grin over at him, happy for the distraction of thinking about the trio's playful rivalry with each other. My smile must not reach my eyes because Sal turns serious as he asks,
Is something bothering you, sweet girl?
No. I shake my head to try to back up the lie, but tears are already welling in my lower eyelids. The kind, knowing look he gives me opens the floodgates. Tears stream down my cheeks as I blubber, yes, my life is a complete mess. Before I even know what is happening, I spill my guts to Sal. I tell him everything I know from the moment I woke up stranded in the ocean with no memories, to my blissful night with Roman, and the heartbreaking revelation that he was involved in my capture. Now I'm stuck leaving here with a family that clearly loves me, but that I don't know, when all I want to do is stay here with the man who betrayed me. I'm sobbing so much by the end of my monologue that I doubt Sal can understand my words. He gently pats my shoulder and gives me a warm, caring gaze. I like it that he just listened to me without offering me any platitudes about how things will get better. We sit silently together for a long while. When my crying finally subsides, he offers me a clean, neatly folded white handkerchief from his pocket. After I use it to wipe off my wet face, I cringe as I hold the now crumpled, damp swath of fabric out toward him.
Just keep it.
He chuckles, which makes me smile as I tuck the used hanky into my jacket's pocket. Eventually, he puts his hands on his knees and says,
Come with me. I have something to show you.
He slowly stands up and starts walking, without looking back to see if I'm following him. I only hesitate a moment before joining him. We walk side by side at a leisurely stroll on the sidewalk, as if both of us have all of the time in the world. I don't bother to ask him where we're going because I sense that if I did, he would just tell me that I'll find out soon enough. After several blocks, Sal stops and turns to me to say,
I'm not going to make any excuses for what Roman did, but I can tell you that boy has a good heart. When someone with a good heart does something questionable, it's usually a good idea to look at their why. I have a strong suspicion that this is his.
When he turns and looks at the quaint brick building beside us, I follow his gaze. The ornate sign reads, Delaware Alzheimer's Care Center. At my questioning gaze, Sal answers without me having to ask.
Roman's mom has early onset dementia. He took care of her himself for as long as he could but eventually realized that he needed help. This is one of the best facilities in the region, but it's extremely expensive.
Suddenly, answers start clicking into place. It hadn't made sense for the hard-working man with the simple, yet fulfilling life, to go against his clear moral code in order to get money. Transporting me against my will definitely wasn't the best way for him to earn extra cash, but at least he had a valid reason for needing it. Sal places a comforting arm around me as he says,
He spends all of his free time here with her. Since his boat was at the dock, there's a good chance he's inside just in case you decide you'd like to see him again.
Without another word, Sal drops his hand from my shoulder and shuffles away in the direction we came from. I stand at the cast iron gate of the classic red brick building, trying to decide if I should go inside. I'm not sure if I can or should forgive Roman. His endearing reason for needing the money doesn't negate the fact that what he did was wrong, terribly wrong and hurtful. It could easily have turned out so much worse than it did. Part of me knows that I should walk away from here and never look back. But another stronger section deep inside my chest knows that I would never forgive myself for not seeing this all the way through to whatever end is coming. After taking a deep, calming breath, I open the black gate and walk up the sidewalk to face my uncertain future. It's time to decide if the rest of my life will include Roman or not.
Chapter 16. I set aside the sterling silver hairbrush as soon as I see Maya walk out into the sunny courtyard. Mom loves it when I brush her long gray streaked hair, and I enjoy taking care of it for her, but I don't want Maya to think I'm doing it just for show. Besides, my hands are shaky from the realization that this is quite likely going to be my last conversation with the woman of my dreams. Mom is sitting in her wheelchair in her favorite spot on the path by the dolphin fountain in the facility's colorful flower garden. When she whines about me stopping the long strokes through her hair, I hand her the hairbrush, which she happily turns from side to side to see it shimmering in the sunlight. I have no idea how Maya found me, but I'm glad she's here. Mom's care is such an important priority in my life that it felt like a huge omission not to share anything about it with Maya. Even though I know Maya probably wants nothing to do with me going forward, seeing her here makes my heart thud wildly in my chest. The lovely woman causes physiological reactions in my body that are completely out of my control. I've never experienced anything like it. The all-consuming nature of my awareness of her is both terrifying and thrilling at once. Maya approaches us tentatively, as if she isn't sure she's welcome. I give her a smile that doesn't reach my eyes. My eyes will never sparkle with joy again as long as Maya hates me, even though she has every right to despise me with every fiber of her being. After folding her hands together in front of her body, Maya says to Mom,
"Hello. My name is Maya."
Mom's eyes light up.
Hi, Maya. This is Roman.
As soon as she says the words, she looks up at me for confirmation.
Right?
That's right, I assure her, which makes her beam with pride.
He brushes my hair for me.
She tells Maya. Nodding, Maya says in a sincere tone,
"He does a wonderful job. It looks beautiful."
Mom preens at the praise. I ache to kiss Maya for being so kind with her, but I have enough sense to know that it wouldn't be a welcome gesture. It's likely that she's only here to read me the riot act for what I did, and I deserve her wrath.
"Would it be okay if I speak to Roman alone for a minute?"
Maya asks her. Mom blinks several times, as if she can't quite believe that someone would be thoughtful enough to ask her permission for this. Eventually, she gives Maya a wide smile and says,
Yes, that's fine. I like sitting here by the pretty fountain.
After Maya thanks Mom and turns to head toward the other side of the garden, I tip down to adjust my mother's lap blanket before quietly saying, "I'll be right over there if you need anything." Mom doesn't respond. Her eyes have gone glassy, and she's staring at the water spurting from the dolphin's mouth. Sometimes she checks out like this for just a few minutes. Other times, it lasts for hours. Once I join Maya on the far side of the courtyard, I say, "I'm so glad you're here. I have no excuse for what I did, but I want to sincerely apologize to you. I'm so sorry, Maya. If I could take it all back, I would." Maya nods her head toward Mom.
"At least you had a good reason for needing the money."
Not wanting her to let me off the hook, I say, "But that's no excuse. I should have found another way to get the money." She nods again and stares down at the cobblestone path. "I convinced myself that you weren't in any danger. They promised me that you would just be detained and inconvenienced for a short while. As soon as I left you with them, I regretted it. I turned my boat around, intent on insisting that they hand you back over to me, but they were already gone. I've never been so scared as when I found you clinging to that buoy. I'll never forgive myself for letting you be hurt that way."
"I'm okay,"
she assures me, still staring at the ground. "You're not," I insist. When she looks up to make eye contact with me, I say, "They hit your head and left you alone out there without any memories of your prior life. None of this is okay." Hearing my own voice say it out loud makes the full reality of this situation click into place. My chest burns as I say, "You're not okay, and it's my fault."
You couldn't have known what would happen,
she says quietly. I don't want her soothing reassurance. I don't deserve it. In a voice that's louder than I intend, I say, exactly. I couldn't know what would happen, and I'm a terrible person for leaving you in that situation.
You're not a terrible person. You are a good man who was stuck in a terrible situation,
she says. Don't let me off the hook like this, Maya. You should be screaming at me. I want you to be beyond furious with me. It's what I deserve. I deserve to have the woman I love hate me for the rest of our lives, I half shout, not caring that my voice cracks with emotion.
You love me?
She asks, picking up on the wrong part of my tirade. So much, I answer honestly. At her soft look, I add, but that's not what matters here. What matters is what I did to you. You could have been killed. My stomach roils at the mere thought of it, but I force myself to continue. That's unforgivable. I'm not worthy of your forgiveness.
Shouldn't I be the judge of that?
She asks me. I shake my head and stare at the ground, completely ashamed of myself.
When I look at you, I see a good man who made a questionable choice due to extenuating circumstances. Since then, you've done everything in your power to make it up to me.
I hate it that she isn't irate with me. She should be. Needing to remind her of my continued failings, I say, I should have told you who I was as soon as I realized your memory loss was real. I took advantage of you by allowing you to sleep with me. You never would have done that if you remembered.
You should have told me.
She agrees in a quiet tone. After thinking it over for a long moment, she adds,
But I needed you, Roman. I still do. You're my rock, and I know in my heart that you would never do anything that you believed would hurt me.
My heart aches at her easy forgiveness. I want to grasp onto it, but I'm unworthy of it. Shaking my head, I say, no, you can't just let it go like that. I won't let you. I'm the bad guy here. We both startle and turn when my mom's voice interrupts. She evidently wheeled herself over here while we were both distracted.
You're not a bad guy, Roman. You're a good guy. You brush my hair.
Mom beams up at me as if that settles it. When she turns to look at Maya, her eyes take on a confused expression just before she asks,
Right?
Maya reaches out to take Mom's bony hand within hers before saying,
Yes, that's exactly right. He's a good guy, and we're both lucky to have him in our lives.
I'm uncertain how to make the stubborn woman see reason. When I look up at the sky and shake my head, she adds,
And no one will ever convince me otherwise, so they might as well not even try.
Even though she was speaking to my mother, it's obvious that her words were meant for me. Mom's gaze is far away, even though she speaks with profound clarity when she says,
I may not remember much anymore, but I do know that when you find true love, you hold on to it, no matter what.
She's right.
Maya says to me with tears sparkling in her beautiful gaze.
I forgive you, and I want you to forgive yourself so we can move into our future together.
It's hard to swallow around the searing lump in my throat. After I do, I say in a croaky voice, I'll try my best to be worthy of you.
You already are.
She assures me with a watery-eyed smile. Your family doesn't think so, I remind her, thinking of the steely-eyed glares her parents and sister had sent my way after the criminals revealed my involvement in Maya's disappearance.
Warming them up to you is likely going to take a little more work,
she admits, before adding,
but once they get to know you, they won't be able to help but love you. I sure can't seem to stop myself from it.
When she steps closer, I pull her into my arms. She's warm and soft, and it feels right to have her wrapped in my embrace. Unable to believe my impossibly good fortune, I whisper near her ear, You love me?
I do.
She answers. Her eyes are dancing with happiness when she looks up to ask me in a quiet tone,
Do you have room in your life for one more woman with memory issues?
You know, there just happens to be a Maya-sized hole in my heart that has been waiting for you to come along and fill it. The sentiment may be cheesy, but it's the truth, and my heart soars at the delighted expression on Maya's face after I say it. When she tips up for a kiss, I lean down and press my lips down to meet hers. Mom claps with happiness as Maya and I grasp hands and dive headfirst into our happily ever after.
Epilogue. Roman still has a long way to go to completely win over my family, but he is taking baby steps each day to earn their trust. At every turn, he proves how much he loves me with sweet words, thoughtful gestures, and loving actions. It would be impossible for them not to see how wonderful he is, even though they were originally determined not to like him. My memories refuse to return, but I occasionally get flashes of familiarity. Even though my doctors say that my memory will likely come flooding back in a rush one of these days, I'm not too worried about it. It would be nice to have the benefit of remembering my previous life, but I'm certain that it wouldn't change anything about my current one. Roman sometimes voices his concern that I won't love him as much or the same once my amnesia lifts, but I have absolutely no doubts about my feelings for him. They are strong and true. Nothing will ever change that. Austin took the lead on prosecuting the entire crime ring that was involved in my kidnapping. The mastermind behind the plan to abduct me and frame Penny for it is dead, but he had lined up several people to help bring his evil idea to fruition. Austin made sure Roman got off with just a slap on the wrist, in exchange for his full cooperation and testimony. Evidently, in my old life, I floated from one unfulfilling dead-end job to the next. The new version of me has managed to create a fun, interesting job by teaching myself how to build a website for Roman's fishing boat and setting up a shipping system that allows us to overnight his crabs anywhere in the States. He was wary of having an online presence at first, since the live chat data breach, along with a maniac hacking into our personal accounts, was much of the reason why it was so easy to track me down before Penny's planned wedding and frame her for my disappearance. Now that Roman has seen how easy and lucrative it is to get online pre-orders for his fresh catch, he is a believer in the usefulness of the internet. As an added benefit of the online sales, Sal, Jimbo, and Marty are even more desperate than ever to get their hands on his daily catch, so he's been able to raise his prices. The extra money is great, but it's not quite enough to cover the exorbitant daily fees at the facility where Roman's mom lives. I have a small savings account from my previous life, but Roman refuses to touch it. That's why I came up with another plan to help his business. He likes my idea, but wants to discuss it and get the advice of one of his closest friends, who just happens to be business mogul billionaire Dane Wilder. Dane is coming over for dinner tonight, and I am oddly nervous about meeting him. Even though my knowledge of him is limited, the man is wealthy and powerful enough to be a household name. In fact, when I was chatting with Penny on the phone and mentioned that Dane was coming to dinner, she gasped and asked if she and Austin could make the 5-hour drive down here to join us. She has been wanting to schedule a visit soon anyway, since she and Austin have adopted Ziggy, a black lab mix puppy. She probably thinks we'll bond over the puppy's adorable antics, and I'm sure she's right, but I want to meet Roman's intimidating friend, without the added pressure of having my sister constantly trying to jog my memory about everything under the sun. After I promised to make the trip up to Connecticut to visit them all next weekend, Penny readily agreed and quickly signed off the call, likely not wanting to give me time to change my mind about coming. As the time approaches for Dane's arrival, Roman and I work comfortably together in his small kitchen. He prepares the crabs while I make the potato salad, dinner rolls, and fresh peach pie with pre-made crust. When my nerves begin to kick into overdrive, I ask Roman, "Is this too simple of a meal? I'm sure Dane is used to eating at lavish 5-star restaurants." Roman chuckles, not seeming a bit concerned.
Nah, this will be one of the freshest seafood meals he's ever eaten. Everyone loves it. You said my crabs are the best, right?
I chuckle at the unfortunate-sounding double meaning. Yes, your crabs are the only ones I ever want. Unable to stop worrying, I wring my hands together. But what if?
But nothing.
He interrupts. After leaning in and pressing a kiss to my temple, he adds,
Dane isn't nearly as pretentious as you would think. I promise he'll love it, and you.
He unwittingly tapped into my true worry. With such limited memories, I feel like a fraction of a person. My small talk skills are disjointed because I can't bring up any stories from my youth or interesting anecdotes that happened before my kidnapping. Roman must see the continued worry drawing down my features because he gives me a deep kiss that steals my breath away before saying,
I just hope he doesn't love you too much. After all, he's a handsome billionaire. He might try to steal you away from me.
That would never happen, I assure him, already feeling better about tonight. Within moments of Dane's arrival, I can't imagine what I had been so nervous about. The man gives me a huge bear hug as if we are old friends, starts razzing Roman about how bad his favorite football team did last season, and helps himself to a glass of water for the beautiful bouquet of colorful flowers he brought with him. It's impossible not to like the outspoken, friendly man, even though his magnetic energy seems to suck all of the extra oxygen from the room. There is no doubt that he is a force to be reckoned with, and it's easy to see how the handsome man became so wealthy and powerful. Dane smoothly helps with setting the table as if he lives here with us. I can't help but be impressed by him, and a little annoyed with myself for automatically assuming that he would be useless in the kitchen, due to having hired help take care of everything for him. This man clearly isn't afraid to jump in and get his hands dirty. Once we're settled at the table, Dane takes generous portions of everything and digs in as if it's the greatest feast he's ever seen. After his first bite of the crab, he tips back, lets out a satisfied groan, and says,
Roman, that's the best seafood I've ever tasted. If you didn't have a redacted, I'd marry you.
The surprised chuckle bursts out of me. This billionaire is about as far as can be from the stodgy and uptight businessman I was expecting. Roman refills our wine glasses as he says,
I've never been so grateful for my redacted.
We laugh all through dinner, as the men try to one-up each other with outlandish stories from their school days. Roman clears the table while I slice the peach pie. When I deliver Dane a dessert plate with a hefty slice on it, he winks at me before saying to Roman,
You better keep a close eye on this one, or I may try to steal her away from you.
I take Roman's hand within mine as we resume our spots at the table. We only have eyes for each other when I say, that will never happen. I belong with Roman.
And I belong with you,
Roman tells me, before leaning in to press his lips to mine in a breath-hitching kiss. Dane clears his throat dramatically to remind us he's still here. Roman and I reluctantly pull apart, and the three of us share a smile. Pointing his fork at me, Dane says to Roman,
It looks like you've found a keeper.
Definitely.
Roman agrees. Using this moment to pivot the conversation, he says,
She's full of brilliant ideas, too. In fact, that's why we asked you to join us for dinner tonight.
Dane sets down his fork, giving Roman his full attention.
Maya thinks I should do some upgrades to my boat and start booking tourists to go out on excursions on the water with me. I can let them catch a few crabs for their dinner and show them the ropes of what it takes to be a crabber. Once the initial upgrades are done, it wouldn't cost me any more to take them out with me, and I could charge them a pretty penny for the adventure.
Roman sits back after his monologue. When Dane doesn't immediately respond, he adds,
Since you've turned into such a business guru, we wanted to get your opinion on whether you think it's worth the investment.
I like it and I'm in.
Dane answers. At our twin questioning looks, the billionaire explains,
You might as well go all in. Rather than upgrading the old crusty boat you currently have, let's set you up with a brand new boat that will impress your guests. I'll be a silent partner in the deal, and you can buy me out once you're floating in extra cash.
It warms my heart that Dane is so ready and willing to help, but Roman is having no part of it. His thick brows furrow together as he says,
Quit throwing your money around. We weren't asking you for an investment. I just want your advice on whether it's a sound business plan.
Dane holds up his hands in an innocent gesture.
Okay. You can't blame a man for trying to get in on the ground floor of the next best thing. And to answer your question, yes, I say go for it. Anything that brings in more money for the same amount of work is bound to be a solid business decision.
After thinking about it for another moment, he adds,
You might want to bring Maya along to schmooze the charter guests though. The fear of dealing with your crotchety attitude all day might scare people away.
The cantankerous fisherman shtick is part of the charm.
Roman tries. Dane chuckles before saying,
I think most visitors will find Maya's charms to be much more appealing.
Roman nods his head, obviously in full agreement. I love the idea of getting to spend my days out on the water with Roman and people who are paying to be there with us. With that settled, we each dig into our peach pie. It turned out even more sweet and delicious than I imagined. After Roman finishes and slides the small plate away, he says to Dane,
You know, you've started using your money as a crutch.
What?
Dane asks, scrunching up his face in confusion and what appears to be a bit of annoyance. Not backing down at all, Roman explains,
Your first answer to everything is to throw cash at it. You used to be like the rest of us, scrambling and using your creativity to get by, but now you think you can fix any problem with money.
That's not true.
Dane says, but it sounds almost more like a question than a statement.
It is. You've gone soft, man.
Roman's eyes light up with an idea just before he says,
I bet you couldn't survive a month on the salary of your lowest paid employee.
Yes, I could.
Dane fires back.
Then prove it.
Roman challenges him.
No more penthouses, housekeepers, or Porsches. You have to figure out how to get by for 30 days as one of us regular peons.
No problem.
Dane answers, sounding overly confident.
What do I get when I win?
$100.
Roman responds. I grin at the ludicrous prize. To the billionaire, $100 is probably like a quarter to most of us, so I'm surprised when Dane responds.
You're on.
With the bet settled, our little party breaks up. Dane gives me a big hug, then pats Roman on the back as he says,
I'll need a few days to make the arrangements, but I'll be back here in just over a month to collect my winnings.
It's much more likely that you'll be back here in less than a week to pay up.
Roman teases him as Dane opens the front door to leave. Their light-hearted ribbing ends as Dane sweeps out of our home and fires up his ultra-luxurious sports car. After we close and lock the door behind him, Roman pulls me into his arms. Looking deeply into my eyes, he asks,
Wouldn't you rather live in a massive mansion with someone as wealthy and powerful as Dane, rather than in this little shack with a simple, struggling fisherman?
No way, I answer adamantly. Deciding that isn't quite enough, I add, you, Captain Roman Cox, are my dreamboat.
Your dreamboat, huh?
A wide smile spreads across Roman's face before he says,
I like the sound of that.
Good, because I love you with my entire heart, I tell him, fully meaning it.
That makes me the luckiest man alive, because I love you with all of my heart and soul.
He whispers. What about your body? Redacted. I emphasize the heavy-handed hint, waggling my eyebrows suggestively.
As you wish, my lady,
he says before lifting me into his arms and carrying me to our blissful ever after.
Dolphin trainer Emmy Scott is too smart to fall for visiting billionaire playboy, Dane Wilder. That is, until Dane makes Emmy an offer she can't refuse. What will happen when the billionaire can't have the one woman he truly wants? Find out when you listen to Florida Flirt.